Hi, I'm Brian with Pioneer Builders and the Build Show. This is the second part of the series on the HVAC in this particular house. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go up into the attic and take a look at all of the equipment that we have up there. But first things first, I know this isn't the most popular topic, but we're going to talk a little bit about safety. Let's get into it. Well, one of the things that I take into consideration with all of the aspects of construction is safety. Now, granted, when a homeowner moves in, it's going to be up to them for how they want to do things. But at a minimum, if I can set the table for them to be safe, I've done something nice for somebody else. Sometimes we even keep the house in our portfolio. Again, we're a spec builder. Sometimes the houses don't sell. So we might be the ones who are actually performing some of the maintenance. Here's how we get access into this particular attic. First, we use a ladder like this, but it's really not safe to be stepping on either one of these rungs. But you can safely get up here. So if you follow me up, here's where the hatch is. And now it's just a matter of getting the hatch off. Now it would be very, very tempting to keep walking up. But ladders can kick out from under you. Let's see if there isn't a safer way. One of the things that a person needs if they're going to be working on equipment is to be able to see what they're working on. And the mechanical code requires there to be illumination wherever the equipment is. Well, because we would be going up into an attic, I want to be able to provide an easy way to have light instead of having to be fumbling around up there, wearing a headlamp, those types of things. So here's our solution. We just have a three-way light, typically from a closet, up into the attic. So I've turned that on from here, and for a homeowner, we'd probably end up labeling that so they know which one. And then when we look up in the attic, we can see that there's plenty of illumination. We're up in the attic, and we'll basically follow the air stream, the path that would go along. And the first thing that we have is this electronic air filter. So again, it's made by Trane. And you can see that it has this electrical component to it. So it actually uses static electricity in order to purify the air, as opposed to like a pleated media filter. Okay, so first we want to unplug it, and now we can see that the power supply has been stopped. Then there's a couple of hatches here with these little clasps, and we pull that out, and you can see there's a fair amount going on just with that. This right here is what you might call a nuisance filter. It basically will capture things like cat fur, things like that you want to make sure that doesn't get into the system. This is where the electrical side of things happens. This is called the field charger. So this is where the electrical signal will go, and then that's what provides that actual filtration that's going on. Then we have these collection cells. There's two of them. There's one here and there's one on the other side. So these guys have to be cleaned periodically, that nuisance filter as well as the collection cells. But that's really what provides the filtration for the house, in addition to anything that you might end up getting from the ERV side. As we keep walking through, here's where the air handler is. Now what's special about this one is it uses an ECM, or electrically commutated motor. Again, I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds on that, partially because I can't. But here's the main point. Instead of it being all on or all off, that fan can actually change speed. But let's go ahead and just take a look at what the different components are as we walk around. You can see the different refrigerant lines that we have. This is to collect any condensation that might be needed. And then there's also some other PVC piping in order to convey that outside. We have the electrical component over here, and then if we look over here, we can also see electrical coming into the system. One last thing that this particular unit has is a heat strip. Sometimes it gets so cold, sometimes there just isn't enough heat for these guys to operate very efficiently in the wintertime, outside, ambient heat, because it's a heat pump. So we do have resistance heat in here, just in case we need it. What's cool, if you saw the video where we went through that Trane thermostat, I was actually able to see when this system tapped into that heat strip. Now we're going to talk about the Trane EnviroWise ERV. There's different ways that we can supply air to a house, but as humans, we just can't keep rebreathing air over and over, or it starts to get stale and it's not healthy for us. Our brains may not even work properly. So what we do as just our standard is use an ERV in order to supply fresh filtered air from the outside to the occupants. So in this case, we'll show you the inside of it. There's these clasps underneath and the hatch opens up. And what we have is air comes from this duct down here, and it passes through this core, and it goes out of this duct here, and it ends up coming and supplying throughout the duct distribution system of the house. Then this particular duct here, if you've watched the video that went through the different ducts in the house, that's now that return air grill that we had outside of the bedrooms, and it is drawing air out of the house. It comes back through here, and then it goes outside from there. This core is what's known as an enthalpy core. Basically, it gets the air streams real close to each other. That way heat energy can transfer between them, otherwise known as just tempering the air. And then it also can allow some humidity to transfer between them. So pretty simple system. There's a couple of filters in here. We also have the filter from the outside. These are the two filters by way of comparison. This shows you what's come in from the outside, and this is what's come from the inside. So the inside is pretty much just to protect the unit itself. The outside air filter is to protect the occupant's lungs. These should be cleaned periodically, but that gives you a good idea of what it's filtering as it brings in outside air. Here's a couple more things. Now again, we're a custom spec builder, so there's a couple of things that we don't do. Sometimes we do them. There's kind of like, what would be the ideal circumstance? And then there's living and working within the constraints that you have. So you'll notice that we do have flex duct up here. We have hard pipe in other areas. This is the backside of the air handler unit. So this is where the air returns to it. So that's the return. If you watch the video on the ducts, that type of thing, this is where it's coming in. On this side here, from the primary bedroom, that's where the return air comes from the primary bedroom and comes into this box here. Then again, we have our filter. This is the supply from the ERV. In a perfect world, you have dedicated supplies and returns to every bedroom, wherever you've designed to have your supplies and returns for your fresh air. For us, we have to keep things more simple, basically. So that's what we've done. We're basically using this as a highway. This fan really isn't going to be running at full tilt all the time. So the ERV basically is used through this system as its highway. Now this big duct here is the main return, and that's what comes from the hallway. So that air comes through here. Now we're getting into the distribution side. Let me stop for a second too. You can see we're fairly cramped up here, but what we've tried to do is where the components are that need to get worked on, we've got a good working space. But you can see the framing up in here. This is a stick-built roof, and I'm actually pretty happy how this all turned out. But it was tough. I think I just about gave our HVAC contractor a heart attack. So as the air transfers through this air handler, we can see on the front is where we've got the box, and from there we distribute the air throughout the house. This is going to be our primary distribution that goes down into the main level. On the design, we would have had a return coming up through here and coming into the backside, so that there would have been a return on the main level. That would have taken up probably this much space perpendicular to all of those floor joists. Turns out we only had to do one duct down there. That was very, very important, because while building science and comfort and everything is important, in my book, structural engineering is even more important. We have to have our houses stand up and understanding those things. So you can see some of the different ducts, and while I'm going to be climbing around here for a second, that's real life. Let me show you one other thing that we did as far as our duct design. So let me step over the air handler. The fact is, people shouldn't be stepping over this that often. I may be the last person to ever go over there. You can see that main supply, one of the other ones from the front of the unit, comes over into this box. This box basically acts like a collection box, and from there it distributes into the other bedrooms. So it's a pretty compact duct design. It took a lot of work, a lot of thinking to go into it, but ultimately the house is very comfortable. That brings us to the end of the exciting tour of this particular attic. It was a lot of work, but we were able to keep things in conditioned space, and we're happy with the equipment. There was a lot going on here, a lot going on with the ductwork, but hopefully you can pick pieces of information there and apply it to your build that you might be interested in. Well, I'm Bryan with Pioneer Builders and the Build Show. I really appreciate you watching. I look forward to seeing you next time.